What is the best programming language to learn first? How to decide, should I do backend or the frontend? Which one I should pick first? Hi there, today we will talk about what is the best programming language to learn first. I think that's a very common question. Most of the folks who starting to learn, thinking about to learn, or beginning to learn programming question themselves first. Hey, which language would I pick up, where I would start? Probably you're switching from your current industry to another one, to the software development. So in that case, I think the easiest first language for you, the best one, would be JavaScript. And I will explain why. Historically, internet being created with a JavaScript, like everything you see in internet is used with a JavaScript and HTML and CSS in the browser, at least on the front end. And that dominates how much code you have in the JavaScript. And it's been throughout the years. And most importantly, JavaScript will cover you in terms of the software developer roles. It's one for all language for the front end. So if you go to the front end software engineer role, you will definitely go with the JavaScript. Like you cannot choose anything else. You will be choosing between frameworks of libraries. You will be using like React.js, Angular, Vue, Svelte, and another. But in terms of languages, you cannot choose, like it's JavaScript only. That's why it's so huge in terms of the market cap. But on the other side, if you decide to do the backend development instead of the front-end development, you can still use your knowledge of the JavaScript, and you will use it with the Node.js, which is basically environment where you can run your JavaScript on the server side, because primarily JavaScript was designed to run on the client side in the browser. With the Node.js, you can run it on the backend. It's still same language you use, same methods, same syntax. In the front end will be for the client use, for the browser, for the things you display to the end client. In the backend, it will be about managing your data, talking to the database, and basically sending that data to the front end. And the front end will pick up that data and then display it to the end user. But what if you decide to do the full stack, which is most of the companies, startups do as well, where they cannot afford two separate roles for the front end and the back end? That choice with the JavaScript gives you a flexibility whether you will go one of the three roles: front end engineer, back end engineer, or full stack. On the other hand, why JavaScript could be a good option as your first language to start breaking to the software development industry is JavaScript is only one language for the front-end development, and front-end development as a role is easier, in my opinion, to start in, because front-end is so much down to earth in comparison, for example, with the backend in terms of abstraction, and where with the backend you work with a lot of data, you still see your results, but it's always in a terminal or tools that actually reflect and show how your data will be displayed. And you basically don't see, if you're building app, you will see that somehow, but you have to use front end for that. Whatever you do with the front end, it's very visual. If you type the code, it displays you in the browser. It's easier to set up and start, and it's so much more enjoyable when you're writing code with HTML, CSS. With HTML, you create the structure. With the CSS, you create styles and colors. And with the JavaScript, you add the logic, and everything you've created now becomes alive in front of you right away in a browser, and you can interact with, and you can manage all your interactions with the clicks, with the movements. Everything is under control of your front end, and you could create so much more just using the front end. With the front end, with the JavaScript, I would suggest the order of learning would be first HTML foundations, CSS, and JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. That's how JavaScript called, without any libraries, frameworks on the top. That will be ideal order. And after that, I would probably pick up a library called React.js, which is having approximately like 80 or 90% of the market value of all JavaScript libraries and frameworks. React.js dominates the market, and splitting it with Angular, Vue, Svelte, and other frameworks. The order still would be HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React.js. HTML would be taking you so much less time. HTML, it's a skeleton. CSS is basically styling. That will take a little more time to learn. JavaScript will take you most of the time because it's more complicated. It's where your logic of your app, why we use React.js on the top of the JavaScript, because it creates somewhat level where you can manage your JavaScript a little more faster. How much time it will take in comparison with the JavaScript? Relatively maybe same amount of time. What if you go with a backend? You still need to learn JavaScript specifically as Node.js. As I said, Node.js is an environment where you run JavaScript, which is primarily built for the running in a browser, to be running in the server side, on the server side environment. And what if you decide to go with a full stack? You will do posts as whatever we discussed for the front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, and Node.js on the back end. But since it's a full stack role, some companies say, hey, you will be doing 80% of the back end and 20% of the front end. So they are more like a mostly backend developers. Some roles are different. They are like a very heavy 80% on the front end and 20% on the back end. Some roles have a less distinctive split, like a 60 on 40% or 50 on 50. What is important to understand, when you're full stack, you either will be a little more proficient in the both ends, and that means you have to spend more time to get there, or you sort of become a generalist, which is full stack mean by itself, where you know a little bit of the front end and a little bit of the back end, but in general you know both of them. What could be alternatives to the JavaScript? And I think I would be going with the 3 languages, considering trends, market size for these languages, amount of jobs created, and what I've seen so far. That would be either Python, Go, which is called Golang, and Java. Why all of these 3, or one of them? Python is a same easy scripting language as JavaScript. If you go with the data science, data analytics, where people are part of knowing SQL, which is database, they use also Python to manage data. Python also is heavily used for machine learning. I think like a primary language. You cannot you can go with something else, but Python is a primary language there. Python can be used as a backend language, specifically for the web development with the frameworks like Django and I think Flask, but I haven't seen a lot of implementation with the Python for the backend. Why Go? Golang is, I think, one of the trending languages for the backend web development, and it's something on the rise. For the last few years, I've seen a lot of companies switching from whatever they had to the Go. It's interesting, it's trendy, it has a big future going forward. So when you learn right now, you're always thinking like a few years in advance, because market will grow, market will shape and change a bit. And why Java? Java is a classic. If you go anywhere and there is a term of legacy code. Legacy code means the code been there for the few years, even though they've been developing maybe some few new features in different languages. A legacy is what been built before that and has probably a huge amount of the code base, a size of the code. So Java has that enterprise level code for years now, and it's one of the biggest backend programming language so far in terms of the code base and in terms of the legacy. So if you doubt for the backend role and if you want to pick up something which you'll be sure, Java would be a good language for that. Is it easy for beginners? I don't know, probably not, but you can't miss with the Java. Whatever the language you pick up, JavaScript, Java, Go, Python, or anything else, they have a lot of similarities and differences as well, but you will get comfortable pretty fast with the next language once you master your first one. So whatever you choose, make a choice and start learning. That's most importantly. Once you spend some time with the first language, the next language will be so much easier, believe me. You can always pivot your choice later. If you started with a Python or the JavaScript and you decided, hey, I have to switch because of the reason, it's very important to master one language and be proficient instead of like knowing 4 on the very foundational level, specifically for your first job as a software developer, as engineer. When you come to the employer, they will be hiring somebody who knows one language at some intermediate proficient level instead of hiring somebody who knows 4 languages or 2 languages foundational beginner level. So pick up one, start learning, master it in order to get the job, and then you can pivot later. Consider leaving a like. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of the videos or you want to see something else next time, especially if you really interested in specific topic to get you comfortable with the beginner journey in the programming. Do you want to cover something else? And of course, consider subscribing to the channel if you think that brings you value. Thank you, and bye.